来到异想直播间。本场直播的主题是 Biochina 2026国际论坛澳大利亚市场。Hey everyone, welcome to today's webinar hosted by Biochina. Today's webinar topic is Australia market.
At Boson Ventures, where I look after our healthcare investments, it's my great privilege to be speaking at Biochina today to share our perspective on the incredible momentum behind Australia bioinnovation, as well as the abundant opportunities for China partnering and working with Chinese industry. So I'll start off with a few key figures. Our market capitalization, so our listed companies on the Australian Stock Exchange for the biotech and medtech sectors exceed $160 billion Australian dollars. In 2025, our biotech and medtech venture capital funding reached a new height of $829 million. And over the past year, our country has contributed over $1.59 billion towards the medical and health research sector in non-dilutive formats. Australia has been on the precipice of a rapid transformation in supporting new commercialization from our research institutes, which I'm excited for our panelists to get into a little bit later. A key figure is that in the year 2024, the year-on-year increase of new research spin-out companies from our world-class institutions was 60%. And we anticipate that that momentum will continue, and it's a great time to be investing in and partnering with highly innovative biotech companies from Australia. Biotech and medtech is the third largest venture capital funding sector, and Australia always has had a historically high ranking globally for life science research, and we're 9th on the Nature Index for life science research. For a country of 26 million population, smaller than the population of Shanghai, we think that's really extraordinary achievements. So those are sort of the impact metrics that is really defining Australia's transition from a global life science research leader to a top-tier destination for life science investment. So I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into some of the scientific breakthroughs and fundamental research that has actually landed global impact for Australia. And the reason why, as a Chinese Australian-led venture capital fund, we're so excited about contributing to the sector. We have had 7 Nobel laureates in physiology or medicine, 4 awardees of the Lasker Prize from the US, and our innovation has yielded groundbreaking impact across many fields, not just singular fields. 3 key highlights would be our vaccination, small molecule, and medical device sectors. And you'll see that actually there are some that are historical achievements, but also there has been a continuum of innovation that has translated to high impact breakthroughs that are leading the world today. From vaccines, our researchers from the University of Queensland and partnering with our local giant CSL has developed the world-leading Gardasil product and the HPV vaccine platform. At the same institution, just last year, we had a spin-out company using a new molecular clamp vaccine technology that achieved an acquisition with Sanofi, resulting in upfront payment of $1.15 billion. In the small molecule space, Australia is home to the discovery and validation of BCL2 as an inhibitor of apoptosis, finding a new hallmark of cancer research, and has translated outcomes such as venetoclax in collaboration with AbbVie and Genentech. We're also the site of the discovery and patenting of drug inhibiting JAK1/2, which was ultimately acquired by GSK for $1.9 billion and received FDA approval last year. In the medical device sector, Australia's largest medical device company is transformative cochlear implant has basically become the preeminent global leader in the last few decades, but also that paved the way for groundbreaking innovation in brain-computer interfaces. And one of our local discoveries, Synchron, is now world-leading in implantable BCI and is transitioning into global phase 1 studies in 2026. But maybe why is there a reason that you actually don't hear that the identity of this science is actually rooted in Australia? And it might be because that in the past, a lot of these innovations have been out-licensed at a very early stage. I do want to say that we have some successful and large biotech enterprises, and we're really excited to be joined by Sophie from CSL. CSL is headquartered in Melbourne, Australia, and achieved $15.55 billion in revenue in 2025, and has been active in the Chinese market for the last 40 years. We also have a global leader in radiopharmaceuticals, which is an incredibly hot topic at the moment, called Telix, and they achieved $804 million in revenue last year. We have been home to some assets that have achieved significant licenses and M&A with global pharma, including Sanofi, GSK, Roche, Boehringer Ingelheim, and Pfizer, all having made large transactions across multiple sectors in the past 3 to 5 years. And a lot of Australian tech is not yet commercialized in Australia, but you can see that in the future they will be significant based on the amount of fundraising that they're able to access on the global stage, including Vaxxus, a vaccine technology platform that has raised Series D funding at 49 million Australian dollars. NRG, which is developing small molecule that is now a London-based company that had achieved £50 million in Series B financing, and also University of Queensland licensed research into Protagonist Therapeutics, which is a NASDAQ-listed company with a current market capitalization of $5.8 billion, and they received a new drug approval just this year in partnership with Takeda for their first asset. Australia is fantastic for collaboration because we're stable, predictable, and very well defined. In an era of global instability, we can deliver upon reliable partnerships for worldwide R&D and supply chain. There is long-term and consistent support from the government investing in public science, a world-class hospital system, science technology with quite transparent policy frameworks. We have world-class IP protection, clear ethical and data governance, and internationally harmonized regulations. We believe that Australia is actually able to maintain robust relationships with most major global economies, facilitating multilateral collaboration and very resilient supply chain configuration. We are, allies with the US, with Europe and UK, but China is our largest trading partner. And so we're very well versed in facilitating and balancing complex relationships. And I'd say we do very well in the current sectors already. So we think actually at this moment in time, Australia has a really strategic window of opportunity where, as an innovation hotspot, the value of the assets are relatively undervalued, but the quality is extremely high. We have new momentum and policy orientation just in the last 2 years that's really boosting the translation and spinning out of research and commercialization push, which is opening that window of investment. We're seeing that in the last few years, our world-class universities, such as the University of Melbourne, University of Sydney, have established their own funding, pre-seed and seed Series A, Series B venture funds that's creating a more higher volume and concentrated pipeline of spin-outs. So that 60% year-on-year increase is backed by both policy and capital and transformation within our institutions. We also have a surge in private capital and deep tech fund formation that's also supported and balanced by government investment, such as the Medical Research Feature Fund, the Australian Economic Accelerator, and state-based funding such as Breakthrough Victoria. That adds up to a substantial amount of capital flow into the early stage private sector. This is also complementary with non-dilutive grants, which can create a lot of capital efficiency and lead to some great outcomes for early stage development. So we believe that actually for Australia, there are some really strategic opportunities where you can have favorable access, reasonable valuations, and quite high certainty of collaboration partnership success. It's a translation engine that is really gaining momentum at the time where there is really fierce competition and there is some high competition and scarce access to great assets at very premium prices in places like China and the US. So we believe that for Australia, we're an undervalued opportunity at an inflection point, and we're really ready to unlock that value. So from Boson's perspective, we're an early stage seed fund that's quite embedded in Australia's deep tech and life sciences space. We're very embedded in our ecosystem, and we are also trying to work towards bring more connections and partnerships between China and Australia. You'll see that actually we have some key research and translation partners, and all of these institutes are now very proactively commercializing and partnering out their research, including the CSIRO, Monash University, Walter and Eliza Hall Institute, Garvan Institute, University of New South Wales, Florida Institute. So we're really excited. Actually, on the panel, we'll be joined by Professor Jiang Li, who is a preeminent professor from Monash University, which is top ranked in the pharmaceutical sciences ranking, consistently in the top 5 globally. And we're also joined by Dr. Anne-Laure Po, who is head of both business development for WeHi, but also head of WeHi Ventures, the new $66 million fund that is dedicated to spinning out science from Australia's largest and most established biomedical research institute. There's also ample support from incubators and accelerators, and very privileged to be joined by Mr. Stuart Dignam, CEO of MTP Connect, which is a federally arranged initiative that's really targeting the innovation and acceleration in our life sciences and medtech ecosystem. Furthermore, as a fund, we've also received support as an emerging venture capital leader in our local sector through the Victorian Government and the LaunchVic funding agency. And in terms of our fund performance, we're currently building on our Fund 2 that's exclusively deploying into Australian biotech and medtech and deep tech opportunities after quite exciting performance from our Fund 1, where we've already reached over 3.7 times the total value of paid in capital. So again, it's our great pleasure to be at BioChina. We are very grateful for the invitation from MOR to actually bring together an Australian panel and showcase our true capabilities in drug development and therapeutic development. We know that Australia has been seen as a fantastic destination for phase 1 clinical trials, but actually a lot of the advantages and value that Australia presents as a clinical trials destination can also be dialed back into preclinical drug discovery and drug development, because those same key opinion leaders and clinical leaders in our public hospitals that are PIs for your phase 1 studies are also actively collaborating with our basic scientists and translational scientists in a really vibrant and collaborative environment. And we have a really exciting pipeline of new opportunities that are reaching the stage where they're ready to partner with both global pharma and now China pharma and China biotech. So without further ado, I'm really excited to welcome to our stage our panelists and to get started on a discussion about the capabilities for innovative Australian biotech and medtech. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I know that for some of you, it's your first time in China, so that's very exciting. And maybe for many of us, our first time in Suzhou. So joining me today on the panel, I think we've really assembled a list of leaders in the Australian biotech sector. I'll give a chance for each of them to make their own introductions, and then we'll dive deeper into some of the opportunities and challenges that we're seeing for the future of Australia and China biotech collaboration. So maybe I'll get started with Professor Li Jian.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank Boston Ventures for the invitation. I'm Jian Li from Monash University. I'm a professor working in antimicrobial pharmacology and drug discovery. I did my PhD in Australia and developed my career there. And my team really focused on how to optimize antibiotic use in patients. And we develop international dosing guideline for polymyxins. And we did lots of fundamental research And we also develop a new drug, new antibiotic from our lab, from concept to clinical trials. So we're really looking forward to any potential collaboration down the track and try to stimulate collaboration between Australia and China. And we got a very complementary R&D kind of environment, and I hope there will be more collaboration between the two countries. Thank you.
And Laura?
Thank you, Betty. Thank you to Boson Ventures for inviting me, and I'm really delighted to participate to BioChina 2026 here in Suzhou. So my background is immunology, and I did my PhD in Institut Pasteur in Paris. I was very fortunate along my career to have the chance to work in Singapore, in Asia, in Europe, in the US, and then to Australia, where I relocated 8 years ago. So I also worked in many different academic institutions and also private companies such as Biotech and Big Pharma as well. And so, for example, before moving to Australia, I spent many years with GSK Vaccines, working as global head, external research and development, and also in business development and licensing. So there I was in charge of due diligence and deal making up to 200 million euro. So currently, I'm the head of business development at WEHI, and WEHI is really quite an extraordinary institution in Australia. It's the longest standing medical research institute in Australia. So we are located in Melbourne, and this is really a top place for scientific research excellence. So for example, in 2024, we had almost 500 new scientific publications. In the Nature Index ranking that Betty mentioned, we're actually first in Australia, 5th in Asia Pacific, and 15th globally. We are recognized alongside other globally influent research institutes, and we are 3 times above the local average for research grants from the Australian government. Also, quite importantly, WEHI has a track record in collaborating with biotech and pharma and delivering new innovative molecules alongside our partners. And one of the examples that Betty also mentioned is a collaboration with Genentech and AbbVie on the apoptosis process, and that led to the invention of venetoclax. Venetoclax is a first-in-class BCL2 inhibitor that is currently commanding more than $2.7 billion sales globally, and it's marketed by Genentech and AbbVie. So WEHI also created WEHI Ventures in 2023, so we are almost 3 years in, and and I'm leading that as well. And so we invest in seed stage companies to progress WEHI IP or WEHI related IP toward the market. Thank you.
Thank you. And next is Sophie from CSL.
Thank you. Thanks for everybody to join us in the morning. I'm Sophie Kwong. I'm actually based in Shanghai, and I work for CSL. And thank you, Betty, for making the introduction of CSL. We are an Australian company, but we are also a leading global company. We operate in over 40 countries, including China. CSL was established about 125 years ago, and then also this year marks our 40th anniversary in China. So we have been in China for 40 years as well, and we definitely have a lot of operations, including R&D, commercial, and manufacturing all over the world. So that's something, although we always say that we're an Australian company, but we are in fact a global biotech company. And in China, that, as I mentioned, that we have been here for over 40 years. We have one product that sells very well. That's a human albumin, and that's one of the top 5 products in hospitals. So definitely, we are very well established in China, and we are looking for opportunities from China for our global organization and also for China as well. So very happy to be here, very fortunate to be here, and look forward for further discussions with any of you.
And Stuart from MTP Connect.
Hello, everybody. My name is Stuart, and I'm delighted to be here in Suzhou with you all today. I'm going to start with a great reason why Australia and China should work more closely together. And you may have seen the global rankings of the best cities are out today. Number 1 is Melbourne in Australia, and number 2 is Shanghai. So together, we are the best in the world. And maybe we'll hear a lot about the science and the innovation that's happening in Australia, the quality of that, and my colleagues can talk to that extensively. But I think there is a compelling case for us to work together. There's a special relationship between Australia and China. Not many people realise that in 1971, so 55 years ago, Australian political leader Gough Whitlam came to China. It was during the Cold War. Nobody had diplomatic relations with China in the West, and Australia came first before Richard Nixon's very famous visit in 1972. When he was Prime Minister in 1973, he came again with a big delegation and established formal diplomatic relations here in China. So practically before anybody in the world, Australia recognised the importance of working with China and respecting the People's Republic of China. And I think we have a lot to build on from that incredibly strong foundation. And I will point out that our current Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, visited China last year and met with President Xi, took a delegation to various parts of China, reinforcing that commitment to Australia and China relationships. And yes, there'll be ups and downs in relationships, there always are, but I think when there's friendship, shared culture, business ties, and respect, there's always a way through. So I'm incredibly optimistic about the potential for Australia and China to work more closely together across all sorts of sectors, but particularly in this sector, in life sciences, medtech, biotech and pharma. We have fantastic, innovative, emerging companies. Early stage drug discovery is very strong in medtech. And that IP creation combined with the expertise in China, the ability to scale, to access other markets together is incredibly strong. So again, thank you for having me here.
Thank you. And finally, Dr. Anushi Rajapaksa from MISTI.
Thanks, Betty, for having me. And I really would like to acknowledge Boson Ventures. And good morning, everyone. My name is Anushi, and I'm the founder and CEO of a company headquartered in Melbourne, in Juma. We are co-located with CSL in Melbourne, and very privileged to be here in Suzhou. This is actually my third time in Shanghai in the last 11 months. Between Melbourne and Shanghai, I really reinforced the friendship that we built in the very short time, I have to say. Being my first time in China in April last year, to being here for the third time is a privilege. So a little bit about MISTI. So the concept behind MISTI was actually born during my PhD at Monash, similar to Professor Lee. And it was an accidental discovery. What we discovered is a way of turning a very fragile biologic into a breathable mist. Out of that was born a smart connected inhaler that is now drug agnostic, that could be delivering the next wave of biological medicines. So if I think about, I guess, everyone's familiar with the GSK Blue Puffer. What we're creating is the next leader in terms of globally to deliver biologics with the same ease and precision. So a little bit about me. I did a PhD at Monash and worked a little bit at GSK and been a scientist building a laboratory in Melbourne, and then spun this company out of out of that research, and we're now pursuing a $1.4 trillion business opportunity. We understand that in China we've had strong pull because we understand it's the respiratory capital of the world, and we are really keen to partner and look at opportunities actively, both from advanced assets that you're working on, very open to discussing collaborations, and really, really excited to be here and meeting with you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think we'll just dive straight into the questions. We will be covering sort of three main topics today. First being sort of the strategic drivers and market access opportunities between Australia and China. Next, the value of Australian capabilities and partnerships. And third, how we actually can land the pathways to partnership. So maybe I'll call upon the specific panelists to share their perspectives. Maybe first I will ask perspectives from Sophie that actually 5 years ago, Chinese biotechs contributed 0 molecules to global pharma in licensing. Today, that figure is over 1/3. How has this transformation changed the way Australian biotech leaders like CSL now view opportunities for collaboration with Chinese partners in this sort of new way of pharma leadership?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we closely monitor the market, of course, and we also notice there has been drastically increasing BD deals coming out from China, and that's something that we also observe, and that's why starting last year we are fully committed to source innovations from China, whether or not it's for global pipeline or for China partnerships. So definitely China has made it into our center stage within CSL, and that's why they have recently pretty much carved me out of the BD organization just dedicated to China. So that's my job now, is to really focus on China. So really looking forward for some of the further discussions and connections with all of you. So just to reinforce that, China is at center stage, and we also have our BD leadership coming at the end of this month in March, and also in April. So they want to be personally engaged with the China innovators. That's what we have been sort of committed to do. Absolutely.
That's really great to hear. And I think leadership from CSL will also pave the way and set the scene for other participants and members of the industry from Australia. And Laura, you are working quite often globally with business partnering opportunities for the new innovations from WeHi, and now also managing the WeHi portfolio of ventures. How have you seen China's place evolve in the discussions you're having globally?
Yeah, thanks, Betty. So indeed, it is a global market, and WeHi has a lot of early stage innovation, which are very unique and have generally the potential for first-in-class innovation. So at WeHi, we partner globally, but we focus mostly at this point still on Australia, the US, and Europe/UK. So those are the three main areas of focus for us in terms of commercializing our research. However, before COVID, we actually had identified China as a strategic priority where we had started to explore. So the approach of WeHi in China is actually to grow networks organically and with a very, very long-term vision. So we have partnerships with the best and the leading Chinese universities where we can have Chinese students in our laboratories to do master degrees and PhD. And then sometimes they stay in Australia or go back to China, and we grow the network because these people become, leaders of tomorrow. So at this point in time, I would say we have a few commercial links with Chinese companies, but I think we can do much, much more. And especially with the new landscape in China, where we see the innovation in China is becoming extremely strong. So I'm really hoping we can leverage each other's strengths and create new relationships.
That's fantastic, Anne-Laure. Dr. Lee, you have been a research leader, always operating through an extremely translational lens, and also being involved in partnerships, not just with China, but also US. From your perspective as a seasoned research academic with close collaboration to industry, how has your personal work and the impact of your work evolved as China is becoming rising as an innovation leader in biotech?
Great question. I think, as Betty mentioned, I really benefit from the global collaboration between US, Europe, China, Australia. I'll give you an example. I co-led two NIH US-funded projects on how to optimize last-line antibiotic called polymyxin in critical ill patients. And both R1 and ground really involved multinational, multi-center teams from US, Thailand, and some China as well, and some Europe countries, plus Australia hospitals. And I think we can only work together to integrate all essential expertise, and then we can solve this kind of global medical challenges. And particularly for antimicrobial resistant research, we strongly believe, not only myself, many colleagues, leading colleagues in antimicrobial field, infectious disease field, we believe the future of antimicrobial market is in Asia. And I believe China plays a strong leading role here. And just a question previously for the two colleagues, I can really sense over the last 2 decades, the dramatic increase in biomedical research and also R&D in China. And I'm really jealous because the government here put a lot of funding support to promote the kind of R&D. And no wonder now we can see lots of lasting deals from China. So I think between Australia and China in the future, I really welcome everyone to go to Australia, have a look, build collaborations, and we can find new mutual benefit opportunities. I think that's a great collaboration down the track, I hope.
Thank you so much. And I think you have such a prime example of the way that Australian scientists are so collaborative, that we are open to partnerships all over the world, different institutions, different geographies and markets, because a lot of the Australian scientists are dedicated towards making impact and a positive change in global healthcare. I think that value and that really drives the collaborative sort of the positivity towards collaboration and partnering. Stuart, so in China, the Australian clinical trials landscape is really famous. Actually, we walked in and there was a big sign for Embroiled Clinical Trials 乔治医疗, which started as an Australian company. As someone who is, promoting and an ambassador for the sector across the world, I'd love for you to maybe dive in a little bit deeper about what else makes Australia a very great destination beyond our phase 1 capability.
Thanks, Betty. And the earlier point, could I just say, I don't think it's a matter of China rising. China has risen, and it's a given that in many areas preeminent. And I think that fact is one of the most significant dynamics in the global sector. I think the Americans are pretty concerned about that, and I think the level of engagement from the US in China too is emblematic of that fact. And there's plenty of big pharma companies, global pharma companies, that get 40% or more of their assets from China, and it's increasingly novel. So that's the perspective that I come from, and my job is to try to work out a way for us to work more closely together, because Australia does have a lot more to offer than early phase clinical trials. Yes, that is an important aspect of our sector, and it is reflective of the great infrastructure that we have, the great health system, fantastic hospitals, great clinicians. All of this is important, but it also powers the innovation of our early stage companies the researchers, the entrepreneurs that are trying to take ideas from the bench to the bedside. And I think, you know, a visit to Australia would be in order, and I'll be doing my best to bring Australians to China to see what is happening here. We at MTP Connect, my organisation, we're an independent not-for-profit, so we work across the whole sector equally with everybody. We also invest in and fund early stage companies directly ourselves, and I know a lot of those have partnerships in China, and it's you know, the past is around lower costs. That's not the case anymore. It's about quality. Cost, yes, but quality of the work that is done, that's really important. The quality of what Australia is producing, Betty's outlined a lot of that, some of those amazing companies. We did provide early funding to Synchron, which has raised 300 or so million in the US and is taking on Elon Musk quite successfully with their technology. So we know about the quality, and I think Australia and China working together it just makes all the sense in the world. It's very complementary, the skill set in Australia and China, and we're going to do our best to bring us together. Yeah.
Thank you, Stuart, and looking forward to more trips to China with you. Anushi, I see you as like a pioneer in Australia entrepreneurship sector, as a research academic, a lab scientist who has made a successful transformation into building your own startup company and raising venture capital funding. Would you be able to share a little bit about what that journey has been like as a academic in the Australian ecosystem, but also how global viewpoints and opportunities have supported the development of your product and company as well?
Thank you, Betty. And of course, Boson's leading the way. I need to acknowledge their contribution in this journey. I guess what's different between us, and I think I have to take everyone back to my second visit to China, being in Nanjing, where we pitched our company, our product, to Nexus 2025, which is the Future Cities Challenge, and we ended up winning the first prize, and the ceremony was held in Nanjing with Melbourne's mayor being present, and it's a point of validation and a milestone for us, because what that did is kind of put us into another level of global visibility, and that is really what I would say. In Australia, we tend to be quite conservative, but our science and technology is truly world class, and we've built our company with allies in US. We've had them from day one, but through Launch Week and other partners and state government funding, we've been able to move essentially the core technology manufacturing from US to Melbourne, or whatever that was left. And now, all the sovereign capabilities built in Australia, but we realized that there was a tipping point, because we can grow to a point, and it is a good problem, as we were chatting to Stuart about this, but being prepared for that, because if you don't bring, I guess, these strengths earlier on into the journey, they don't happen overnight. And we talked about, building long-term friendships and connections early. And I think we were privileged to be there in terms of Australian scientists that have Chinese background, who have been working with us from the beginning and funded through initiatives that MTP Connect had been part of, and through those friendships we've been able to leverage connections in China, which meant that we were invited to come here and have a look. But I think until we made the effort to come and have a look, that would have been an eye-opener. So I have to say, if I didn't come, I would have never known what the capabilities were like, and I was really mind-blown and pleasantly surprised. And then, you can plan ahead to go, okay, well, we're kind of in zero. We can take it from 0 to 1 in Australia. This is, I think, great analogy by Betty. But then from there, what? Then what? I think that is what really, thinking about, I guess, that scale quite earlier on the journey, and convincing the Australian venture capital funds was actually quite challenging in the beginning. But having Boson Ventures, there, I think they take a lot of comfort in the expertise that is being built here, and also the companies that have, Professor Lee talked about a lot of, there are a lot of Australian success stories that have come out of China. We're not doing it alone, and I think that gives credibility to the path. And we notice that Cochlear is here, ResMed's here. So these are, I guess we call them the giants in Australia, and they've always been supportive in Australia. It's one of those really unique ecosystems that are incredibly supportive. So my advice is, if you're thinking about raising in venture capital sense, build allieships. Don't think about your own ecosystem. Try and tap into others that are truly complementary and can value add.
Maybe, can I just add one more thing? There's a real passion that I find with Australian innovators and a drive to achieve a clinical impact and get their products to patients to make a difference. And I think if you can achieve clinical impact, then you guarantee commercial outcomes, which is what we're all driving for. So I just make that point about this passion to help patients that exists in Australia, and I'm sure that exists in China too.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much, Anushi, for the kind words. Definitely, as someone who moved to Australia when I was 7 years old, I'm really excited to actually use my Chinese background, Chinese language skills to facilitate the translation, sometimes very directly, but also the partnering opportunities I see between some amazing innovators in Australia and China. Next, I want to sort of really speak to the value of Australian capabilities and partnership value. And I would like to maybe invite Sophie and Laura in sharing the perspective of the long history and partnering between CSL and WeHi, because you're right next door to each other, which makes it convenient. But also the sort of the new initiatives such as the Jumar Bioincubator, where you're now providing platforms for more Australian innovation to come out of the lab and head into industry.
Do you want me to start? Okay, so thanks, Betty. This is a great question, and I think a great example of what we have in Australia and what we can achieve together. So WeHi and CSL are both headquartered in Melbourne. So as Sophie explained, CSL is a global and globally ranked biotech company. So it's a pharmaceutical company, which is a for-profit, and WeHi is a not-for-profit for medical research. There are a lot of level of the relationship between CSL and WeHi, which we are very proud of. I would give maybe two examples. So in 2022, WeHi, CSL, and the University of Melbourne created a joint venture to actually create the first startup incubator for life sciences in Australia that is co-located with a global pharma, which is CSL. So we are very fortunate today to have secured funding from Breakthrough Victoria in Melbourne to create that incubator that opened 3 years ago. It's called Jumar Incubator, and it's co-located in the CSL building in Melbourne, Australia. We have today almost 40 startup residents in Jumar, and Misty is one of them. And I think it's an extraordinary achievement, and we see a lot of the companies there raising funds successfully and progressing their product. And it's really important to have a physical space where people can connect, learn, grow, and also have some privileged relationship with WeHi and the University of Melbourne, but also very importantly with CSL. The second example of the relationship between WeHi and CSL was that 4 years ago, we co-created a joint venture which is called the Center for Biologics Therapies. And really, this structure embeds tools from CSL that are used in the global R&D by CSL, and also the target-rich biology from WeHi. So together, this structure has developed more than 50 programs to date, which are high potential, high quality programs for future biologics therapies.
Thank you, Anne. Yes, really great introduction of the Jumar program. I just wanted to add to our relationship with WeHi. We have long-term collaborations with WeHi, definitely, and we have these sort of simplifies process so that the research programs coming out from the universities, we can quickly fund it and for research, and same with Monash, right? So we have these long-term relationship with the top universities in Australia for research programs, and we can get into some more of these research programs later that we have on top of those individual programs. We also have the research acceleration initiatives, and that's a call. That's annually. That's a call to all the researchers around the world that you submit an abstract of 300 words, and we funded $400,000 for 2 years. And then also just want to add, maybe I'm jumping ahead, but just want to add that last week we just announced a licensing deal with Monash. So that's a licensing deal coming out from the RII program. So that's just wanted to say that we have these standing and long-term collaborations and research from the key top research institutes.
Fantastic. And Professor Lee, I think I have to let you speak to the fantastic capabilities of Monash, just 25 kilometers away from the Parkville precinct.
Yeah, thanks, Betty. In addition to the really successful story from CSL Weihai, I also want to share a little bit about Monash with China. And everyone knows Monash has a large number of Chinese students at Canadian campus, Malaysian campus, etc. On top of this, we also have a campus in Suzhou, right at Suzhou Industrial Park, and built a partnership with Southeast University here. And we are very lucky to get strong support from SIP government. We built a couple high-end platforms on drug discovery, etc., including one I'm leading. The reason I want to mention that is, I guess many of you already learned from last year, WIPO, the global R&D cluster ranking. In the top 15, China got 5. And number 1 is Guangzhou, Hong Kong Bay Area, and Shanghai, Suzhou in number 6. And over the last couple of years, I've been increasing my working load here on Monash campus. I strongly feel the complete pipeline for biomedical R&D in Suzhou and Shanghai. It's absolutely amazing. I come back to Monash collaboration with China. I think in addition to the strong tie between Monash, China, lots of alumni and lots of graduates from Monash now, they are leaders in the field in China, globally. So I really hope in the university sector, we can also build a strong relationship with Chinese universities as well. I'm really, really excited about that.
That is very exciting. And many of my friends, when I was working at Weihai, are now building successful scientific careers in China, in places like Guangzhou, Hangzhou, Shanghai. And it's exciting to see them thrive, but invariably they tell me that they want to come back and collaborate with Australia and maintain like that energy and the passion and impact-driven approach. Stuart, I would like to then move on to actually more from the funding and investment side. So I can speak from, I guess, one venture capital's viewpoint, but I would love to hear from your perspective with like national reach, how that private capital and government funding landscapes evolve. That's really, I believe, churning out a lot more opportunities for investment and partnering than there probably have been in the last 2 decades.
Yeah, thank you. So the life sciences sector or medical science is designated as a priority sector in the Australian economy, as it is here in China under the China 25 plan. So that's something we have in common. But in Australia, that unlocks all sorts of policy and funding potential. We have the Medical Research Future Fund, dedicated to translation and commercialisation of medical research. That's a 20 billion Australian dollar endowment. There's the $15 billion National Reconstruction Fund, which is a relatively new initiative with money earmarked specifically for this sector. There are a range of other programs, AEA that Betty's mentioned, Industry Growth Program is another, various state programs, but I guess what that says is that the sector has the backing of the Australian government, and that provides some increased validation for what is going on with our early stage companies, and attracts more private capital, venture capital, other sorts of investment to what we are doing. And then kind of reaching out from Australia, that's a role that we play, is creating linkages to international markets, new partners. Obviously, we're very active in the United States as the world's biggest market for medtech and pharma, still the world's biggest market, despite some challenges, if I can put it like that. We're very active in South Korea as well. We have a relationship with Kitty in Korea, and we're exploring doing the same here in China. We've just established an MOU with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and have taken a delegation, and Anne Law was on that delegation, and we were to have an inbound delegation to Australia in a couple of weeks' time, but the security situation there has meant that's been postponed. But it just goes to the links that we're creating, and I've only been here for a few days, but the meetings that I've had in Shanghai and in Suzhou are really encouraging to me. I'm learning a lot about the ecosystem, what's driving it, what are the opportunities for collaboration. So we're working hard to link that up, join that up, and create more potential for us to work together. And just on a really practical note, you can fly directly from many Australian cities to here. Makes business really easy to do. We're in practically the same time zone, which makes business easy to do. The visa-free thing is great, so thank you for that. So just on a practical level, it's really easy for us to do business, quite apart from that history of us and our relationship going back, and the trust and the respect that we have for one another. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Next, I'd love to sort of save the last sort of one or two questions for actually how the mechanisms for partnering. And I'd love to hear a little bit from your perspective, Anushi, because often when we do see projects or research partnership, it's between Chinese background scientists and innovators, but clearly you're not Chinese background.
No.
And I think that requires a degree of trust building, cultural immersion, and building like a mutual understanding. So would you be able to share actually what that experience has been like?
Yeah, thank you, Betty. So maybe I'll take you back to the first interaction I've had, through a PhD, post-PhD program. We funded, with the support of M2P Connect, APR intern from a Chinese background, incredible, amazing scientist. A week later, they were having dinner with their parents who happened to have manufacturing footprint in China, and next thing you know, we're traveling to China, meeting with potential investors and signing MOUs and having dinners.
I love it.
That's how it goes. I think through all of those interactions, what was really eminent is the interest and the passion, not just from the Australian side, but the Chinese side to really. They use this analogy of the chopsticks, which I thought was really interesting. Australia being one chopstick and China being the other chopstick. So together, you kind of can do it. You can't do it alone. So I thought that was a really cool analogy, and it's kind of stuck with me, for a good reason. So the MOU was a stepping stone to more deeper conversations and, building more capability, because what we initially anticipated in doing is a little bit different to now, but through those conversations, we are growing as a company, but also the Chinese partners are growing. So we kind of, can build this kind of almost immersion program and build more trust. And every time I come I'm now messaging them on WeChat going, I'm here, would you catch a train to, these other provinces? And it's just a wonderful, wonderful relationship to be, kind of developing and nurturing over time. So, and I think my only advice is just start chatting, and more dinners. I think that's what it is.
Lovely. I think there's a few more planned for tonight and tomorrow night. And Sophie, you have been actually working on behalf of an Australian company in Shanghai for 10 years. I did not know that actually CSL had an office and staff in Shanghai. So could you maybe, and you've also had education in the US, and would you be able to maybe share about what it's like working with Australians? Are we really as lazy as people assume?
No way. Definitely.
Good answer.
Well, let's say that we are more relaxed, okay? For sure that I think saying that we are Australian company actually helps. It does have a sort of advantage, especially in this a bit complex world, right, of geopolitics. But for CSL in China, we are probably relatively low-key, and we are very, very focused on certain areas and niche areas. We've been here, as I said, for 40 years, and we have worked very closely with Chinese companies. Previously, we were doing more of M&A deals in China and commercial deals in China. But for these upcoming years, we are focused on doing licensing deals from China. So this is something that we're actively searching for opportunities. But definitely in terms of collaborations, right, we have done a whole lot of all different types of deals, license with Monash, and then we have just recently done a couple ones like license, option to acquire for Vomex, for a hematology product, and then option to license definitely from Memo Therapeutics, which is another company that does more of IG immunology products. So this is something that we are really doing globally, and we are really looking forward to work with the Chinese community and innovators.
Yes, and I can say that as a scientist who worked at WeHi, that actually Australian scientists work incredibly hard. You will see them in the labs at all times of the day, and maybe Anne-Laure and Jian, you can share a little bit about actually the dedication of Australian scientists and individuals in the sector.
Well, yes, I think medical research is extremely demanding, and I've been working in several organizations across the world, and I think it's a bit more of the same. People come on weekends and people come, so I think that's, I can't really comment on the Australian culture. I'm Australian now, but I migrated to Australia 8 years ago. But I think, medical research is a culture in itself, I would say. What I've seen is pretty consistent across the board. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think I totally agree. I live half my life in China. I was born here, and then live half my life in Melbourne afterwards. And I would say two things. The first one is for research. I think in Australia, they got a really, very specifically hypothesis-driven kind of research. And in China, people work really hard. I think that's a great combination. But in life, in Australia, we really enjoy relaxing life. And in China, we have a great food. So nothing can be better by the combination of the two, right? So I think we need to enjoy life, enjoy work, enjoy collaboration.
Fantastic. And maybe to finish up our panel, Stuart, I'll give you one last opportunity to really sell Australia and, reasons 1, 2, and 3 for why they should try and why you should come for a visit to Melbourne, Sydney, or Brisbane.
Well, as the world's best city, there's a reason right there. But maybe as a good example of what we can do, Betty, you mentioned the Gardasil, the HPV solution, which was invented in Australia out of the University of Queensland with Professor Ian Fraser, but his partner was from China. So that was an Australian Chinese invented drug or vaccine that is a global blockbuster, sells $1 billion a year in sales. And I think that's a really great example of what we can do. It's incredibly innovative. cutting edge, has clinical impact, amazing clinical impact, and shows how we can collaborate, how we can work together, and how we can get products into patients around the world. So there's every reason for us to be working with you and for you to be working with us. There's a complementarity around what we can bring to the table, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how much further we can go and make examples of what's happening, not as isolated, to be more systematic, to be more embedded in our respective ecosystems. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, everyone, for coming to the session and giving us your attention. We're all very excited to build partnerships. We all have WeChat and looking forward to staying connected and see you next time. Yeah, thank you so much to my panelists as well and making the flight over, and really hope you have a wonderful few days in Suzhou.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
更多内容请持续关注异想线上。See you next time.